This episode of The Rookie Hunter is sponsored by North Arm Knives. North Arm Knives are handcrafted and sold directly through a father and son team right here in British Columbia. Choose from a selection of outdoor knives, kitchen knives, and the brand new folding knife from northarmknives.com. They ship internationally and guarantee all their work. Callie and I use their products and give them our stamp of approval. Go to northarmknives.com. Hey guys, welcome to episode 34. Today on the show we've got Hank Shaw. So Hank Shaw has an amazing website called Hunter, Angler, Gardener, Cook, Finding the Forgotten Feast. You can find it at honest-food.net. The website is absolutely incredible. It's full of recipes, great blog posts. He's brewing beer, he's hunting, he's gathering, he's doing all kinds of good stuff. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. There's tons and tons of resources. There's over 1,000 recipes on there. He's also an author. He's got 3 books out right now: Duck, Duck, Goose, Buck, Buck, Moose, which Kelly and I have been using, and Hunt, Gather, Cook is another one that he's got out there. So you're going to hear more about those 3 books at the end of this episode. Make sure to check those out. The books are absolutely fantastic. Buck, Buck, Moose, if it's any reflection on his other 2 books, is absolutely full of detailed information. You're going to want to pick that one up, and I'm sure you can find that from his website. We've also got a link posted on our website too under our resources tab if you want to find it from there. Our website is therookiehunter.com. You can get in touch with us. You can send us an email. You can find all of our social media stuff is all there from our website. If you're new to the show, we do ask that you leave us a rating and or a review in iTunes. That stuff goes a long way. So big thank you to those that are considering doing it right now and those who already have. Appreciate it, guys. So let's get into this one. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy episode 34 with Hank Shaw. Kelly Molnar.
What's going on?
Another year older.
Yep. 32.
The big 3-2. We both.
You as well.
We both aged another year. Well, you were on the 6th. I was on the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to go out and celebrate on Friday night, I guess it was. And to a local spot here called Micro. Oscar's destroying the place in the background here. Which is like one of our favorite restaurants in town here.
Yeah.
And it's all like local
drinks.
Good stuff. Like the drinks are like handcrafted, like amazing. So that was a lot of fun. We had, we had a whole bunch of different stuff. So we had, I can't remember what we started with, but we started with some oysters, or I did anyways.
Yep.
And then bone marrow.
Mm-hmm.
With what the heck did they give us to drink with that?
So the bone marrow is in like a luge, like half bone.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of spoon it out of there, and then they put a sherry into a little gravy boat, and you do the sherry luge. So you get all the extra stuff out of the bone.
Yeah. Actually, the combination of the 2 of them was really good. I don't know.
That was great.
How it worked, but just the flavors in your mouth after were unreal.
Well, sherry kind of has like I don't know, it's almost got a fatty, like buttery quality to it. So it worked.
Yeah, for sure. So that was good. And then what else did we do? We had duck fat popcorn.
Yep.
Four Winds beer, of course.
We had grilled octopus, like a whole octopus on top of roasted potatoes and chorizo beef. And then meatballs. What else? Was that it? I think we covered it all. I think that's about it.
The cool thing about this place is that it's all small plates, so you can like order a bunch of stuff and share it and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. And then morning came soon after that.
Yeah. And to be honest, I wasn't feeling that great.
Neither was I.
I mean, it's just, we're not young anymore.
No, man. We only had, I guess, 4 drinks each, right?
But they're different. Like they're all mixed, right?
Yeah.
He got a couple beer and then.
But still, when I was 18, that'd be nothing. I could get up and be fine the next day. But you get a little bit older, and it seems to linger a lot longer, and you feel like shit. But yeah. Anyway, so that took us to the BC Sportsman Show, which was a lot of fun. Once we got some Gatorade in us and something to eat.
Yeah, and it started. I think we started at 10, and we started introducing folks that were presenting, and it went well. It was a great show this year.
For sure.
You can tell it's growing, right?
Yeah, definitely, man. It sort of came in waves of being really busy, and then it would clear out a little bit. But there was always stuff going on and people coming through. So that was a lot of fun. We got to meet Brian Chan. We got to meet Tammy Wood. From Saucy's Got Game, and we also hooked up with Matt from Rugged Point there. It was nice to meet him too.
Yeah.
I think he said he wants to give us another story, so maybe we'll give him a call.
Yeah.
Wasn't satisfied with the Sasquatch story, I guess. But
yeah. So, yeah. No, we had some good presentations by Jesse Zeman, BC Wildlife Federation. Had some local vendors on there, Codfathers, which was a great
they did some fish filleting.
Seafood store, one of the best in Canada, I think. And there's another local vendor.
There was the sausage
making, yeah.
Which we'll probably touch on with Hank here a little bit. We've talked about sausage making quite a few times on the podcast, but I think it's something that you and I want to perfect. I don't know if we'll ever totally perfect it because we're always going to be trying different recipes and stuff like that. But something we want to continually get better at. And we're off to a good start. It's not like we've made sausages that were not good. They've all been fantastic, and everyone who's tried them really enjoyed them. But it's all the little things. It's almost
to the details,
like chemistry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And even the mechanics, right? Like the one thing the guy at the BC Sportsman show said, the mechanics of a electric-powered grinder and an electric-powered stuffer and all that kind of stuff, you want to try to avoid that wherever you can, like do things by hand or get an actual sausage stuffer that it's based on pressure just from rotating a thing or pushing a thing
more
down.
Like mechanical and labor intensive
physical power.
Exactly, yeah,
because all those motors, and you start getting sinew stuck in there, and it just starts squishing things, and it adds heat to the meat. And there's all these little details that people that get super obsessed with sausage making, they do it all by hand, right?
I would agree with that, but that's like, if I owned a restaurant, I would probably make fresh sausage every day. But we're dealing with a ton of meat in one go, and it's a matter of dealing with it in an efficient amount of time.
Yeah, I think if you're doing like 5-pound batches, like say if you just did a 5-pound batch, you could spend a meticulous amount of time on each part of the process. But once you start getting to 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds, then...
Yeah, forget it, man. You'd be there for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I appreciate the handmade, like true handmade style. And I think you do notice a change in quality when you do it that way. But lots to learn.
I believe what he mentioned
What's
as
on
well.
tap today, Cal, before you continue on?
Shaftabury, is that how you pronounce it?
Sure.
Brewing Company out of Kelowna, BC.
Kelowna, seriously?
Yeah. Hometown. It's a coastal cream ale.
I didn't know these were from here. Somebody dropped these off for me, actually, which was nice of them. Interesting. I had no idea. Kelowna, BC. Wow. A local beer.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say before I cut you off?
I was just going to go into sausage making a little more, but I think we're going to get into that.
Yeah, we might as well save it.
Yeah. What else happened? You had you did a 10K yesterday.
I did. Yeah. Was that yesterday? I guess it was Sunday, which was actually the day of my birthday, so that was kind of fun. The first run I did was this very same race last year, and so that was the first time I'd ever ran in an actual race, and my time was, I think it was like 52 minutes or something like that, which is not great, but it's fine. My only goal was to like run the whole thing without stopping, basically. So this year, I think my time was 42 minutes. So I managed to shave off 10 minutes from last year, which felt pretty cool. And managed to come in third place at my age group and got a bottle of wine. And
Nice.
And that was pretty sweet. So I'm not there to place in these things, but it's kind of fun. It just, it's a reward for the time that you're putting into it, and it makes you feel like you're progressing to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, you're at the point now where you go on races to try to do as best as you can and try to win, or at least place like top 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm kind of I just want to finish the race, right?
Yeah.
I'm still in that early stage.
Yeah, so you're kind of like where I was last year, so
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time, really.
Yeah.
And you're signed up. You signed up for the whole mech series.
Yeah.
So,
So we mentioned the Mac races we did the weekend before.
yeah,
But I think my pace, you said 52 minutes was your first 10K?
yeah,
Because my
51
pace
or
was
52.
26 and a half minutes
Yeah.
on my first 5K. So assuming I could actually keep that up, I'd probably be right where you were.
yeah, exactly.
And then I got to spend a year trying to catch up and get to 40 minutes.
It doesn't take long, man.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah.
It is fun.
They were telling
to
me
admit.
at MEC, I don't know if this is bullshit or not, but they said like it takes 10 years to become like a really good runner.
Yeah.
So when we're 42, we'll be,
It takes 10 years to be a pro
I guess.
at anything. That's what they say.
So we'll report back in 10 years and let you know how we're doing. Yeah.
My knees hurt.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, I read something recently that said running isn't actually that bad for your joints.
Yeah, you know what I think it is? It's people that don't run correctly.
I would
Then it's bad for
100%
your
agree
joints.
because you and I both had the same
Yeah.
experience. We were running with bad shoes
Yeah.
and fucked up our knees. Like,
Yeah, because anything could be bad for your joints if you do it wrong.
Yeah,
Golf or walking,
sure.
hiking, anything.
yeah. So we both ended up with, I don't know if anybody cares, but New Balance shoes because I think we both maybe have similar issues as far as,
Yeah, I need to like prop up the arch support on your foot
yeah.
because I find, I don't know how to explain this, but like pronation, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So like your ankles, if you don't have support, your arch kind of falls in, your ankles go in,
Right.
and your toes kind of get pronated out.
Right.
So like I ski quite a bit, so I found in my ski boots I had to get them customized and
Right.
molded, and because I was having some issues up there. At one point, I couldn't even like walk to the car after a day of
Jeez.
skiing because
Brutal.
I got new boots and
Yeah,
it just didn't
yeah.
work. So that relates to hunting too, right? We've
Yeah.
talked about this so many times, but if your feet aren't working and you don't have good boots, then you're just like messing up your whole year.
Can ruin your hunts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing big ones.
Yeah.
You forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all fine until you get 5-10K out in the bush and you have to come back.
So buy your boots now. It's April. Buy your boots right now and start breaking them in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So it was another good, solid birthday weekend. Those of you who have been listening since the start know that we had a pretty epic weekend last year. The weather was okay. We got some sun on both days,
Mm-hmm.
which was nice.
Yep.
But it's cold again today, and I don't know. Not feeling this spring kind of sucks compared to last
Well,
year.
you know what happened last year? We talked about that with Brian Chan. The melt happened so early,
Yeah.
and the temperatures rolled in. It was just super hot, super early, and it didn't do anything positive for the fish or anything like that. So on the one hand, this is good. It kind of keeps some snowpack around, I assume, but like, kind of sucks for us.
Yeah.
I'd like to be out on the patio barbecue and wearing shorts, but
Likewise.
might have another month to go.
Yeah. I was reading, it was just on the local news. It was, I don't know, I think it was submitted by a conservationist just to warn people that bears are starting to wake up and they're hungry. So don't be leaving stuff out and be careful around, I guess they hang out along the roads and are looking for whatever they can
Right.
find as far as scraps. So
Yeah.
good to hear they're waking up. But I know we've got a bear hunt or two planned this
Yep.
spring here. I'm not super anxious to get out just yet,
Mm-hmm.
but it's coming. And I don't know. I feel like I feel like it's better. This is just me kind of creating my own theory, but allow them to wake up, start eating again, start eating all the greens, and I don't know if there's nuts and shit from last year, whatever they might be eating, so that the meat's going to be better. And they're probably pretty skinny at this point, so it'd be nice if you can get some fat on them before you harvest one.
Yep. Well, I think we've talked about this. The earlier you go, you can kind of trap them into where the greens are, right?
Yeah.
And then the longer you wait, it's harder to find those greens. So it's kind of like good and bad to both getting them early and waiting a bit.
Yeah. I think we might have talked about this already. Doesn't matter. Yeah. But like I think that area that we're going to is higher up. So
yeah,
it could even be getting a little bit of snow right now. I know I saw some fresh stuff up there tomorrow or yesterday on the mountains around here. So yeah.
Cool.
Another 2 weeks and we'll be ready to rock and roll, I think.
Yep. I took the pup out for a hike on the weekend, just like off leash, and he's about 4 months old. He's about 25 pounds. Not very big.
Yeah.
Right? But big enough. Like, I'm sure he'll be 40, 45 pounds, which is pretty good.
It's a nice size.
So I was thinking, like, bear waking up and all this kind of stuff. So whatever. I let him off the leash. He's running around like crazy. He loves it. And then we stumbled across Adam Ford, who we've had on the podcast before. He had his dog, so talked to him for a little bit. We might have to have him back on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we're walking a little bit further, and I see another couple, and they have a 2-month-old, I don't know what it was, like a dachshund or something like that.
Okay.
It must have weighed like 2 pounds. And it was off leash, and they're just like, yeah, we're introducing it to the woods.
Oh, nice.
So I figured, hey, Norris, you're safe.
Yeah. A hawk can swoop in and take that little dog out.
Yeah, seriously, it could have.
Yeah.
But no, it's a good place to hike. We just went into the park there.
Nice.
Okanagan Park.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah.
Good times.
Got to get both the dogs out here soon.
Spring runoff. It's just running down that mountain, like where that little bridge is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Coming through pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, I guess fishing isn't too far off here too, and I'm still feeling intimidated.
I did go out for some kokanee. I didn't catch any.
Oh yeah.
But I got a little boat, a 12-foot, and the wind rolled in. It wasn't a great day. I was just getting bounced around like crazy. So we'll get back out there again. At least I got to check, make sure everything was working, de-winterized and everything else. So
for sure.
Yep. Only a matter of time with those kokanee.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yes, sir. Well, we're a little bit ahead of schedule here. Should we give old Hank Shaw a call? He's online.
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool.
How you doing?
I'm toggling here. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem. So you're in Sacramento, California, is that right?
Uh-huh. Where are you guys?
We're in Kelowna, British Columbia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's weirdly, I seem to have a lot of readers in British Columbia. We're, in fact, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be down in Texas doing a pig hunt and cooking school.
Oh, nice.
And 3 of the 12 guns are from British Columbia.
Oh, right on.
Cool.
Yeah.
We got a lot of hunters up here.
I've never been. It's one of the parts of Canada I've not been to yet.
Yeah, well, I guess we're not too far from you. I did 2 years ago, or I guess it was a year ago now. I did a trip in my car all the way from here along the Pacific Coast Highway, all the way down as far as Los Angeles, and then came back up on the 101. So
that's a drive.
It was a drive and a half. We, especially doing the Pacific Coast Highway, it's a lot of fun and it's beautiful. But at a certain point, it's just so windy and it takes forever, especially like north of San Francisco. It felt like it just kept going and going and going, and we were basically never going to get off the road. We felt like we were just trapped in a loop that was never going to end. But
God, I hope you're driving a Maserati or something. I mean, shit, those curves. You know, I have a hard time taking it for more than 90 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. But no, it was a cool experience. And like, I guess you're considered Northern California then, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're,
sure.
I guess, northeast of San Francisco a bit, somewhere in there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Northern California is just unbelievable. And I can only imagine the opportunities, especially for somebody like you, as far as fishing and foraging and hunting and stuff like that. It's probably just endless, really.
It's hard to beat. I mean, I can do whatever I do wherever I do it, and I've chosen to stay here.
Yeah, fair enough. How long have you been there for then?
Since 04.
Okay. So your career beforehand, you were working as a political reporter for what, 19 years or something like that?
18 years.
Oh my God. So
yeah, not all of it full time, but most of it. And I ended up covering 2 presidential races. I don't even know how many U.S. Senate and congressional or in governor's races, but yeah, I pretty much knew every governor I covered on a first name basis, including Arnold.
Wow, nice. So what was the turning point for you? What made you want to switch gears into, I guess?
Well, part of it, the decision was made for me because the newspaper industry in 2008 imploded, and they closed my bureau. So I ended up moving to a political newsletter. Kind of, it's a I don't know what you'd have in Canada for it, but it's like the Hotline in Washington D.C. It's a super insidery newslettery thing that all the lobbyists and politicians read, but no normal human would need to.
Oh, okay.
So I did that for 2 years, and then I'd already been doing Hunter, Angler, Gardner, Cook. And then in 2010, after I was nominated for the second James Beard Award, things kind of started to happen so fast. I decided to step off the cliff and go solo. And it's been 7 years now.
Wow.
It's been exactly 7 years, almost to the week.
Wow.
Cool.
And it seems like it's going well. So congrats on that. Yeah.
I'm not in arrears on any of my bills.
Good. That's a good sign. One of the first places we saw you, well, Kelly and I launched this podcast almost exactly a year ago as well, and we got featured in the new and noteworthy section, and we were right next to you actually for quite a while there. And that's how we discovered your podcast, and then ended up seeing you on Meat Eater with Stephen Rennell on that. But where is your podcast at? I know you haven't put up an episode in a while there.
I think it's probably gone for the foreseeable future. It's too much work with no money.
Right.
I mean, like I just said, I've been spending 9 straight days doing grunt work on the back end of this website, and that's all, it's bills paying work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my only option for continuing the podcast would be to sort of Joe Rogan it, which I might, but he doesn't edit at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
neither do
it
we.
is what it is. What it is.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm after having been on Joe's podcast, I'm not opposed to it, but I need to make sure my house is in order before I do anything extra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Mike and I were just, we've been following you in terms of your books and your website, seeing you on different podcasts and TV shows. And we just keep thinking, where does he have the time to do all these things? He's making beer and he's hunting and fishing and keeping your website up to date. You're doing a ton of stuff, so kudos.
Yeah, I mean, that's the stuff that falls through is the stuff that doesn't help me, make a living. I mean, I really liked the podcast. I liked it a lot, but it just was a time sink.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so Kelly just mentioned beer making, and a big
I did one 4 days ago, and I got one just waiting for the yeast to kick in today.
Oh, nice. So this is mainly a hunting and fishing and outdoors podcast, but Kelly and I like to pair up. We've got a lot of craft breweries in British Columbia, as do every state and every province. But it's we like to feature one beer on each episode. So we figured we'd switch things up and ask you about beer making. When did you get into that?
I've been making wines, meads, and wines with both grapes and not grapes, and meads for 25 years now.
Oh wow.
And so that aspect of brewing and fermentation, I know it. I can kind of do it almost without thought. Mm-hmm. Beer, however, is fairly new for me. It's only maybe a little over a year that I've been taking the plunge to actually brew beer, because for a long time, I didn't see why. I didn't see why me, of all people, should start doing this pursuit if, anybody who has any kind of brewing experience can make like a good IPA.
Right.
Or a decent brown or something like that. So what would I have to add to the table? And until I kind of discovered and thought about the idea of using wild and foraged ingredients, there was no allure to it. But once that occurred, I cannot be stopped. I can only be contained.
Do you have some examples of beer that you've made?
You bet. Actually, some of them are even on the website.
Yeah.
So I posted a Goza that is got homemade sea salt from the Pacific Ocean, and lemons from the backyard, and juniper from the High Sierra Nevada.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a fir tip ale made with the young fir tips of the grand fir that live in the Sierra Nevada.
Wow.
And the beer I brewed 4 days ago is called Junipine, and this one's kind of special to me. So that one, it's a red ale with Maris Otter is the backbone of the grain bill.
Okay.
But what's special about it is it's wildly fermented by those same Sierra Nevada juniper berries. So I don't pitch yeast. I rely on the yeast that is covering the juniper berries themselves.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the yeast component of it, and obviously that's quite a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
And then there's a particular kind of pine tree that grows in the Central Valley of California called a bull pine or digger pine, and it has extremely aromatic needles when you cut them up. So I cut them up at knockout because I don't know if you've ever worked with pine needles or not, but if you boil any kind of fir or spruce or pine, you pull out all the turpentine. So you need to extract flavors of conifers with lesser heat than the boil.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, bad things happen. And so that one's a trippy beer, and because that one is aged on oak, and that one I won't be able to release that till summer. I've got a wild plum sour saison, and today I'm doing a beer called Naughty Man, which I can't not call it that because I just found. I mean, I'm obsessed with this particular herb called California mugwort.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure you guys have the same mugwort up in British Columbia. It is intensely aromatic, intensely bitter, and it's preservative. And the Native Americans, or First Nations across the border, they the book on this particular herb is that it promotes vivid dreaming. So a buddy and I and made a version of this beer years ago, and we called it Dreamweaver.
Nice.
And I just found out just this week that another name for mugwort is Naughty Man, and it's an old sort of colloquial British thing. And I'm like, I can't not name this that. So it's an IPA that's being dry hopped with this mugwort.
So when you say release the beer, does that mean for purchase, or are you just
hell no? You gotta be real nice to me. Maybe I'll give you a bottle.
I was gonna say you must have a lot of friends that are just lining up at your door to try all the stuff that you're working on.
You might say that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
Nice. So how many batches went down the drain before you finally got something together that you enjoyed?
Very few.
Good.
I'm a pretty good student, and I think heavily about recipes and what I'm about to do before I do it. And this is kind of an important thing to remember when you're dealing with wild game or fish or wild products from the forests, is that a lot of times you have one chance.
Right.
Or two, maybe. So it's not like you can just wreck something and then go back to the store and buy a new, elk shank or, or fir tips, for example. Sure, you can gather them and you can freeze them if you vacuum seal them, and they're fine. But if you really want the freshest, whatever, nature doesn't wait for you.
Right.
So you've got one or two chances. So you better have your ducks in a row before you start boiling or cooking or whatever. And, you're going to fail. But if you realize that this is kind of a big deal and you need to pay attention to developing that recipe, no matter what it is, then it will serve you well.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I don't know what you know about me and Kelly, but we just started hunting about 3.5 years ago. And before that, we both, I think, enjoyed cooking and that. But when you get into wild game, like you said, it's very precious meat and you can't replace it if you screw it up. So I get a little bit anxious when I'm cooking it because I'm so afraid of, overcooking it or not preparing it the right way. But exactly what you said is sort of just like, I like to take a deep breath beforehand, really look over my recipe a couple times, prepare everything as far as cutting up any herbs or anything like that and measuring everything out so that I can sort of, relax during the process rather than just rushing into it. Because that's what I find I'd always do is just, coming home after a day of work or something like that, you're trying to prepare something quickly and it's easy to make a mistake. But I really just try and give myself the right amount of time to do it properly. But again, you make mistakes and you learn from it. That's all part of the fun.
Got to take
Yeah, I mean,
notes,
that's
too.
another thing that's super important. I mean, this is the 10th year now for Hunter, Angler, Gardener, Cook. And one of the reasons I work so hard on this website is to have every recipe be heavily tested so that if I'm going to ask you to do X, Y, or Z with that precious piece of backstrap or, albacore fillet or morel mushroom or whatever, that I'm not just talking out of my dot. I mean, I've done these recipes and I've worked them, and I don't put stuff that's only okay on the website. So I understand that everybody listening to this has gone through a great deal of trouble to acquire whatever it is that floats your boat, and that, so that the dishes, I feel a responsibility to not put crap out there.
For sure. Well, that's good to hear. I'm sure you probably come across a lot of stuff where people are just putting up these blogs and pumping out recipes in hopes of, getting traffic to their website without really, maybe putting enough time into it, So it's nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely is true. I mean, it happens, and I'd like to think that cream rises, and I've been pretty successful with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
You also have a note on your webpage about being a recipe tester. So sending you an email and telling you what you have in your fridge. And let's say I have a few snowshoe hares that Mike and I got last year. So if I sent you an email and said, "Hey, I got some hare in the fridge," would I be able to test those recipes for you?
Absolutely. I mean, you must be a newsletter subscriber.
Yes. I am. Yeah.
That it's funny. The newsletter that I put out for Hunter, Angler, Gardener, Cook is I don't spam people. I only do it once a month, and I make it a letter to readers.
Right.
And you guys, and now everybody listening to this podcast, know that I have a new book in the works. It's called Pheasant, Quail, Cottontail.
Yeah.
And it's going to cover all the upland birds and small game, as well as things like doves and band-tailed pigeons and snipe and woodcock and that sort of thing. And I just put the call out for recipe testers. I'm not ready to go there yet, but I will be very soon. And I got to tell you, I'm amazed at the response. I think there's got to be almost 100 people sent me a note saying, "Hey, I got X or Y or Z. I'd love to test a recipe." And it's kind of cool, man. I mean,
that's very cool.
It's
kind of
great
neat
to have that kind of response.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's cool for the people who are trying out the recipes, and then they'll go on to see it in the cookbook and feel like they were a part of that as well, right?
Do you test them first? Like, do you know what a tablespoon is?
No, I actually don't. And it's funny because I don't want to, because this is the other reason why my books are even more heavily tested than the website, in the sense that if I'm going to ask you to spend $25, $30 on a book, it better damn well work.
Yeah.
And what's important is that, unlike a website, when it's in print, it's in print. I can't have like, oops, that was supposed to be a tablespoon and not a teaspoon. And I don't want other chefs to test my work, because my colleagues, I love them to death, but they don't really follow direction well. And, if I send this to some chef friend in Portland or in Vancouver or wherever, they're not going to follow the recipe verbatim. And even if they do, they're too good. they have inherent skills that civilians don't have.
Right.
So I only want regular humans to test my recipes because it's important for what I write to be what you read. And anybody who has ever sent a text message knows that that is not always the case.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess going on with the small game and the upland birds, and also that newsletter you sent out was you had a turkey hunt recently.
Oh yeah,
How'd that go?
that was crazy. So I don't know how big turkey hunting is in Canada, but
We have some Merriam, is it?
yeah, I bet
Yeah,
you
we've got a bunch of those up here.
There's
They're
certain certain areas of BC have more turkeys than others. So like where we grew up is in the Kootenay region. We now live in the Okanagan region. Turkeys aren't so common around here, but back in the Kootenays, they're all over the place. So there's a lot of opportunities just depending on where you are.
Yep.
they're just a crazy bird because they're sort of giant squirrels in the sense that here in the States, big flocks of them can just wander through your suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
And people, get used to them and they get used to you, except they, like to pet chrome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they do. It's kind of hilarious.
What species do you have? Is it the same?
Oh, we've got both Merriams and Rios, but
Okay.
yeah, I think there's 5. There's Goulds and there's Osceolas and Easterns as well.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, when you go say, "Oh yeah, I'm going turkey hunting," half the people, if they're not hunters, of course, they're like, "Oh, just hit one with a baseball bat." Like, yeah, thanks, pal. Like, you can't really do that in my neighborhood. It's not. First of all, it's not legal. Second of all, that's going to look great to the 6-year-old kid walking to school.
Totally, yeah.
So, when you get into the wild, I mean, in the hunt that you're referring to is we were in the Sierra Nevada. So we were in the woods where a turkey's got to live by its wits because we've got an awful lot of bobcats, coyotes, and mountain lions in the Sierra Nevada that just love turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not dumb. And, if you get a chance to hunt them in the valley on farmland or, on the edges of suburbia, it can be a slam dunk. I mean, it can almost be just practically a drive-by shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're not going to shoot out the truck, but I mean, you get my point.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff is like, wow, yeah, turkey hunting, big deal. And I'd had a lot of turkey hunts like that. And I'd never really understood, because I'm sure someone who's an obsessive compulsive turkey hunter.
My father-in-law.
See?
Yeah.
I mean, people who will go and try to get a turkey in every state.
Yeah.
Not to mention every different subspecies.
Yeah, true. Well, I know Rennell is one of those guys, right? Steve?
I don't know if he's that hyperactive about it. I bet he's interested.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's probably interested in it the way I'm interested in grouse.
Right.
I only have 5 grouse species left to go, and then I've got everyone in North America.
Oh, wow.
All 3 ptarmigan, and then the 2 prairie chickens.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Which I'm going to rectify this year, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a blast to hunt.
I actually will be hunting ptarmigan in the very highest part of the Rockies in Colorado.
Nice.
But someday I want to get up into past the boreal forest and find all 3 of the different kinds of ptarmigans. When I know it's not the most challenging hunt in the world. I mean, the people I know who live up there are like, well, you can hit them with a rock. Great.
Yeah.
But, it's just part of the whole experience.
Yeah,
I also want to hunt those giant Arctic bunnies, the huge white hares.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen them on TV, and I'm like, I bet you that's a tasty hare.
Yeah. I know you can come up to BC and hunt small game. All you need is a license, I think. You don't have to a guide or anything like that. So
Yeah, me and Kevin Kasawan did that up in Alberta.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
Good. I think we kind of sidetracked you from the results of your turkey hunt, though.
Well, the turkey hunt, like I said, I'd had a whole bunch of slam dunks, and this was not that.
Okay.
This was any number of false starts, turkeys coming right in, but at the bad angle. So, it's not like you can swing on them like a pheasant or a grouse. You've got a lane that you've chosen. And if the turkey comes right in and you've guessed wrong, well, a lot of times you've guessed wrong and there's nothing you can do. And that happened to us twice.
Oh, wow. And
then we had the same group of jakes come in, and it was it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, there's a whole bunch of jakes just gobbling up a storm, and they wouldn't cross a fence twice. And it's not like they had to, move a latch or anything. But they could easily walk right through it. It was just a 3-wire barbed wire fence. Mm-hmm. And they just decided that this is not something they wanted to do. And as it turns out, this was the group of jakes that we got into in a completely different place, a mile away from where we last saw them, and on our side of the fence. It was I don't know. I mean, until you have had a bunch of turkeys gobble at full throat 5 yards from you, where you feel it, it's like standing next to a speaker at a rock concert. Wow. I mean, you feel that in your gut every bit as much as you hear it with your ears. There's nothing quite like it. I mean, there's a reason they call them thunder chickens.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing birds. I think our season opens up April 15th. And it's open for a month, and then I think we have one later in the fall. But I'd like to go back to the Kootenays. It's only a few hours away. Try to get one, even if it's a day trip. I had a chance last year, but wasn't successful. So we'll see if we can make it happen this year.
Yeah, we get 3 in the spring and 2 in the fall, and I'm going out on Friday to try and get a second one.
Nice. Yeah, so we get 1 in the spring and then 1 in the fall, and I think the one season is bearded only.
Yeah, spring should be bearded only.
Yeah, that's it.
So when you are successful and you take a turkey home, what are you considering when you're going to prepare it? Are you looking at the things
First
that
thing
are
is,
around?
if there's a big giant long beard and a jake, I'm shooting the jake. I know every series turkey hunter's like, no, don't do that. I'm like, oh, screw it, I wouldn't. I'm there to eat the turkey.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever eaten a 9 and 12-inch bearded tom, but that's some tough on the tooth eating. I mean,
good to know.
Yeah, you can make them tender, but it's a lot different from any turkey you've ever eaten, because even the fancy Gucci turkeys that you get from like the farmer's market for Thanksgiving, even those are less than a year old.
Oh, okay.
And every jake you hunt is a year old or more. Right. Because they were poults the year previous, right? Mm-hmm. So this is their first year, or maybe even a second year if it's if they were 5-inch beard or something like that. And so even a jake is older than the most fancy heritage turkey you can buy.
Right.
And a tom can be 2, 3, 4 years old. Oh, wow. Sometimes they get older, but they don't have a super long lifespan. But they're running around every day. And I mean, the other sort of fact about turkey hunting is that turkeys walk all day long. Mm-hmm. They roost and then they land on the ground and they walk all day. It's not like they're deer. Like deer bed down. I mean, the only time I've ever seen turkeys kind of bed down is when it's super hot or if it's pounding rain. And so those drumsticks are incredibly tough. And I always separate them from the thighs because the thighs are super tasty. They're my favorite part of the turkey. And it's only that one bone in there. So once you braise it enough, it's going to be nice and tender. Mm-hmm. Now, the drumsticks have those tendons. Now, your famous picture of Henry VIII by Hans Holbein the Younger, where he's holding up the turkey leg, looking all fat. I don't know what kind of teeth good old Henry had, but I guarantee you he wouldn't cut through those sinews. Ironically, if you think about that, I'm just thinking about that. How would Henry VIII have a turkey leg? Turkeys are native to the Central America, so they only came over with the Spaniards in 1500 or 1498 or so. And I guess Henry was after that, but that's kind of crazy. It's a sort of weird anachronism thought, but maybe he was an early adopter of turkeys from the New World.
Interesting. Maybe somewhere through Venice.
It would have been the Spaniards who brought them.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a good point. Might have to Wikipedia that.
But yeah, so what I'm looking for is I always break down a turkey. I don't ever roast a turkey whole when it's wild, just because it's just not the best use for it. The breast meat is very narrow. They've got kind of a hatchet breast, unlike a store-bought turkey, which is called double-breasted. And so the breast meat's fine, but it's really not that much. There's way more meat on a turkey that is not the breast than it is the breast, which is unlike a double-breasted turkey that you buy in the store.
Right.
So I will often pick them. I pick jakes, I pick hens, I skin toms, and I separate 2 thighs, 2 drumsticks, two wings, and I cut both the drumette and the second digit apart from each other. And then I take the breast off the carcass, and I take the tenders away from the breast, because the tenders themselves on a regular turkey can be 3/4 of a pound, just those 2 tenders. And so I have all of these different packages, and then the rest I will make turkey stock with. And so I don't know if you've ever broken down a pheasant or a wild turkey, but you'll notice that the skin, even if you picked it, it doesn't really cover the breast meat as well as, say, the skin on a duck does. They're just built different. So what I do is, even though I've spent all this time plucking the turkey, which, by the way, is not that big a deal. I mean, you're only killing one at a time.
Right.
And if you wait a day or two by shoving them in the fridge or keeping them cool, they actually pick much easier 48 hours after you shot them. That's just a little pro tip.
Yeah, nice.
So then once they're picked and you've broken them down, and you keep the skin on the drumsticks, you keep the skin on the wings and the skin on the thighs, I will pull it off on the breasts. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it just doesn't stay on the breast that well. Well, I don't throw it out. I will salt it with a little bit of smoked salt, and I will grease a cookie sheet, and I will lay out that skin fat side down on the cookie sheet, and then I'll grease the bottom of an equally sized cookie sheet and stick that on top of the skin, and stick a heavy weight on top of that. And you stick it in the 350 to 400 degree oven for about 45 minutes to an hour, and pull it out, and it becomes turkey bark.
Oh.
It's amazing.
Nice.
It's flat,
Sounds
it's crispy,
good.
and it tastes disturbingly like bacon.
Nice.
Awesome. I think you have a picture on Instagram of that.
I do. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's great. Might have to try that, eh?
Yeah, definitely. So from there, this is great. I'm loving this. Keep going.
So from there, so I'm always going to, and then when you take the breast halves, with a big turkey breast half, it's kind of a big teardrop shape. And the side of the breast that was near the tail is going to be narrow and triangular. I cut that off in a way to make an almost sort of ovally football kind of shape of the thick part of the breast. So I will take those breasts into 2 different pieces. So thick part, sort of triangular thin part. And the reason I do that is because if you cook it all in the same, the width is going to be pretty dramatically different. So unless you're using extremely gentle cooking, like gentle poaching, you're going to have that pointy end overcooked by the time the thick end is cooked.
Right.
So a lot of us will make cutlets or scallopini or schnitzel out of turkey breast, which is a really phenomenal thing to do with them. Well, you can pound the little pointy end all by itself, but you have to slice the thick end at least in half and sometimes in thirds crosswise to get good cutlets out of it. And I just find it easier to package by doing fat part, pointy part. So you've got actually 4 breast packets, and then you've got the tenders as a 5th.
Wow.
It's just it's a good way to do it, because what do you do with the tenders? They've got this big old sinew right down the center of them that you can't eat. So it's perfect for Chinese food. You can grind it, you can deep fry it, and then just sort of eat off the tendon. That's a really good use for something that's doesn't have to be presented as a thing. You can just chop it or cut it.
Right.
And the wings are amazing, but you have to par cook them first. You can't make like a buffalo wing or a honey mustard wing just by frying it and then putting mustard sauce off. You'll be chewing forever. So you par cook them until they're very, very tender. So 2 hours, maybe 3 if it's a tom. And then they're going to be tender. And then what you do is you don't fry it. You roll it in whatever sauce that makes you happy, and then you put it in a 400 degree oven to caramelize that sauce, and you can suck that meat right off the bone.
Wow. Incredible. So essentially, you're not just making one dish from a turkey. You can go a million different directions the way you're talking about it.
With the 2 of us, so it's me and Holly, So with the two of us, we can get a meal out of the wings, a meal out of the thighs, a meal out of the drumsticks, 2 to 3 meals out of the breasts, out of one turkey.
Not too shabby. I don't know if this is a common thing for some guys to do, but I've seen it done a few times where guys just put together their own little turkey fryer and toss the whole wild turkey in there. And I've experienced it once, and it was awful. It was a kind gesture to do this thing for Thanksgiving, but it was like chewing on rubber. So you kind of fight your way through it and pretend you enjoyed it, but that seems like possibly the worst way to do it. I don't know.
I kind of agree with you only because it's a wild turkey.
Right.
I've had deep fried domestic turkeys, and they're kind of ridiculously good. But these are sort of lazy, couch potato people of Walmart turkeys.
Exactly, yeah.
They're not actually working for a living. Now that said, deep fried turkey, wild turkey breast is amazing, but you have to brine it first.
Oh, okay.
So if you brine it for 6-8 hours, and then batter it or fry it or however you want to do it, that's amazing.
Wow.
But I can't even imagine a deep fried wild turkey drumstick.
Yeah, I think you could smash a window with that, no problem.
Yeah. I think that's the key, though, is understanding how these animals live, right? And then you start understanding how these muscles are put together and what you're going to have to do ahead of time. You can't just cook it the same way as a normal chicken or a normal turkey.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So with that, too, then you're starting to draw in the foraging side of things and choosing certain ingredients as well then, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how fancy I want to get.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've done everything from, like buffalo turkey mac and cheese to esoteric things. Like I did a dish in Alberta with Kevin. I shot a spruce grouse, and I did a dish that reflected everything within about 100 yards of where that spruce grouse fell. And that was admittedly esoteric dish. It was a really wonderful dish.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't always do chefy.
Right.
But when I do,
that's fun.
It is almost always involving the environment in which that animal lived.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
No, that is cool. I think we have a copy of your book, Buck Buck Moose. And Mike and I make our own sausages, or at least we're trying to, with these deer and elk that we're getting.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. But one of the ones we tried was the juniper sage sausage. And in your description there, it says something about it tastes like the southern slope of a California mountainside on a summer day or something like that. And I cooked some up the other day, and it's actually like you do get that sense because the sage is really coming through. Juniper is not exactly a weak spice, so you get a lot of that flavor, right? It's very refreshing.
Yeah, and I think it was the perfect recipe. It was an older bull elk that we had some leftover meat. We decided to try that recipe with it, and it seemed like a good way to pair those two up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, older bull elk, unless you've aged it a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, it can be also pretty tough.
Yeah. We've noticed that, I mean, we have a lot of mule deer up here. We've got a couple whitetail. The elk, out of everything we've got so far, you could tell it was, this was an October elk, and it was definitely an older guy.
So
he was a 7-point. So
nice
you can tell he's a little gamey, but still amazing meat.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, like if it was before the rut or during the rut and I saw Mr. Big Rack, I'm absolutely popping him. But if it's right after the rut, raghorn, baby, raghorn.
Yeah.
Well, we're a little bit, we're lucky in BC because you can buy over-the-counter elk tags, but they have to be, in most cases, 6-point elk.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we do have an LEH for cow, but it's pretty limited. And then otherwise you're stuck with 6-point.
I don't think our numbers are great. Like I know when I was traveling through Oregon and Northern California, the herds of elk I saw, I have never seen anything like that in my life. So I guess that's all part of it.
Well, the 10 of us in early February put 10 elk on the ground in the space of an hour.
Wow.
Nice.
It was a cow hunt, but still.
Yeah. Wow.
And they all taste great.
Oh, it's giant herd. It's funny. I took aim at a yearling cow, and I pulled the trigger, but I forgot I had the safety on. So the yearling lives to fight another day.
Nice.
Perfect. So we're also in. I want to come back to sausages and stuff in a minute, but we're in black bear season. Just opened up here at April 1st. Have you done much bear hunting at all?
A bit, but only in the fall. The spring bears are super skinny.
Right. That's something we were just talking about and sort of trying to time it and hopefully getting them to fatten up a little bit. Because when does it? It doesn't end until end of June, I think.
I think it's June.
We should check. But yeah, so there is some time to kind of let them put some weight back on. There's also opportunities.
Where you live is kind of a hard one, though, because you're in salmon country, man.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is eat a black bear that's been gorging on salmon.
Totally. We are inland, so we are sort of lucky that way. But we do get the spawners that come up through in the fall and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we lean more towards the spring black bear here to avoid that. But that's the thing with black bear. There's just so many factors to consider when, trying to harvest a bear that's going to taste good. That's what I wanted to ask you is if you had any tips for preparing black bear. And we've never actually field dressed one or dealt with one, and I think hopefully that'll change this spring here. But yeah,
field dressing them's not a whole lot different from a pig. Everybody seems to say they look like people, but they don't. They look like
I've
pigs.
heard that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
They look like people, or they look like pigs.
Okay.
Big fuzzy pigs, and they actually eat. They basically are big fuzzy pigs. I mean, they eat anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, the biggest tip is knowing which bear to shoot.
Right.
And that's a bear that is nowhere near dead salmon.
Right.
And so once you get that out of the way, then, I mean, you've got the rut issues, but I don't know when bears rut. I like to get them as close to hibernation as possible inland, because then they're super fat, they're going to be clean, and they're kind of on their way out in terms of eating, and so they're really there's not as much variability. In the spring, you got spring salmon runs. So you'd have to just know your area.
Yeah, exactly.
So once, the one issue you're going to have with a Canadian bear is that any bear that lives from about the northern tier of the United States all the way up to the Arctic Circle is highly likely to be a host for Trichinae nativa parasites.
Right.
So the nativa parasite's different from what I have where I live, which is the Trichinae spiralis parasite. So if I shoot a bear in California and I freeze that meat for, say, 2-3 weeks, month, that Trichinae parasite's dead.
Oh, really?
Or it's actually technically called, I can't remember the exact term, but it's like decommissioned. It won't get you sick.
Wow.
And they're invisible anyway. You can't see them, but yours won't. Yours is frost resistant, and this is what happened to Ranella.
Yeah.
And so, well, he just ate rare bear at a campfire, so that he didn't freeze it. But yeah, so you could freeze your bear until the second coming, and that parasite will still be alive once you cook it if you were to eat that rare. So you actually have to somehow deactivate that parasite. Now, their sous vide is actually a pretty good way to do it. Obviously, if you cook it to 160 interior or better, it's going to kill it.
Right.
Period. And that's great for a lot of cuts, but it's not really great for a steak.
No.
So the trick with that would be to hold it at 140 for quite some time.
Right.
And I can't remember the exact, there are charts out there.
Yeah, it's an exponential type thing, right?
So so if it's 140 for X amount of time, double it, and then you're probably safe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I never thought of that.
So it's I don't use sous vide for wild game that much anymore, but that's a really good use for it.
Okay.
Yeah, because at 160, everything dies instantly, right?
Yeah.
But,
it's like as soon as your middle of your meat hits 160, it's like it's game over.
Right. And then as you work backwards, the amount of time that it takes just keeps increasing, right?
I think it starts at like 120.
Okay.
It's like something like 8 hours at 120 or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, there's a chart. There's a chart you can look up, and that'll take care of it.
Cool.
That's a great tip. Yeah.
But culinarily, a bear is effectively beef with pork fat on it.
Right.
We actually talked to Tammy Wood, who lives up in BC here. She's a cook as well, but she said never to mix bear with pork meat. I think she said it just made it too greasy.
Well, it all depends. I mean, if your bear meat has no fat on it, then you're fine.
Right.
Yeah, true.
Just have some common sense.
It goes back to that timing issue.
Oh yeah, I made a sausage with 65% fat. I don't know why it was so greasy.
Totally. Yeah, other things we've heard too, good use of bears to do something like a smoked bear ham. A lot of guys will just do sausages or jerky, that kind of thing. So
all good.
Yeah,
all good.
Yeah. Smoked bear ham sounds amazing. And
just make sure it's smoked like a pig ham,
right?
Which is to say fully,
yeah,
as opposed to smoke like a deer ham, which is to say only about 100. You want to smoke a deer ham as if you're just making a roast. So in other words, pull it when the interior is about 135 or 130 even.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on black bear? We've got
the Shanks make the best ossobuco.
Okay.
I actually have a recipe for black bear ossobuco on the website.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
We're going to have to track that down.
Bear belly is ridiculous. So if you got a fat one, you can actually make bearkin. You can, I don't know what Canadian bearkin would be, but you can make American style bacon out of a bear belly.
Huh. Nice.
And then the best dish I think I did with that black bear was Chinese red cooked pork done with black bear belly.
Wow.
It was slap your mama good. It was that good. It was ridiculous.
Nice. And the nice thing about getting a fall bear with a lot of fat on it, there's a lot of uses for the fat as well then, right?
Oh, I mean, I think we still have a pint of bear fat from like 3 years ago. It sits in the freezer.
Yeah, you use that for baking and stuff like that as well.
I've got a recipe for bear fat buttermilk biscuits on the site, which is it's one of those old school things that you talk to pastry chefs and when they go to school, they're like, oh yeah, back in the day there was this thing called bear fat and it made the greatest biscuits ever. I'm like, I have some.
Nice. I'd be curious to see what your pantry looks like. It must just be like
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of what's store-bought in my pantry. Tomato paste, although I have some homemade. Sriracha. I've got some local mustard because I don't always make my own mustard. Soy sauce. That's a pain to make.
Right.
I made it. It's a pain. I'm not going to make it again. A lot of the stuff I do, I'm like, well, how do you do that? How do you sort of go through this process? And then at the end of the day, it's sort of like, oh, that's nice, honey. Let's never do that again.
Right. You tried it once. It wasn't worth it.
Right.
Sometimes it's best just to let somebody else do it for you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, do you want to circle back to sausage making?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's something, how many times have we practiced this now? 2 or 3 times?
3 times, I think now.
Yeah. And both times.
The first 1,000 are hard.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're working with how much meat last time? 50 pounds or something?
Yeah.
I see. There's your problem.
Yeah, too much.
We figured that out. Yeah.
So it's just like making beer. So that junipine, that crazy wild ferment that I told you about at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I designed that beer, I made a gallon, and just to see if it would work. And it did. So now I'm scaling up.
Right.
And you should do the same. I mean, obviously, my recipes work and can be scaled.
Mm-hmm.
But even just the mechanics of it. So I'll never forget. I'd been out of the restaurant industry for a long time, and I got back in to do a special dinner. And I had a duck heart tartare puttanesca style. It's a beautiful little dish. Mm-hmm. And the garnish for it is a garlic chip. And I don't know if you've ever made garlic chips or not before, but if you're going to make it right and you don't want it to be bitter, which you really don't, you have to cook these chips in milk 2 or 3 times. So you put the chip in milk, bring the milk to a boil, pull the chips out, throw the milk out, and do it again. And then you fry it. So it's a 3-step process to do it correctly. Otherwise, I don't know if you've ever fried a garlic. Do it. Just go ahead and fry a garlic chip and then eat it. And you're going to notice this nasty, bitter aftertaste.
Right.
And this is what takes it out. So the reason I'm telling you this is because if I'm doing this for 12 people at a dinner party, no harm, no foul. I can do it while I'm doing 16 other things. You do this for 130 people, and it's an entirely different process. I mean, that one garnish on that one dish, and there was 7 dishes in that meal, took me like 45 minutes.
Right.
And just, cutting the fine dice of the duck hearts for the tartare can take exponentially longer than it would take for a small batch. And the sausage making is exactly the same thing. So, your grinding process, your binding process, your, the space you need to overhaul the meat overnight before you even do anything with it. I mean, just 70 pounds is a big batch.
It is.
Yeah, I guess some of that stuff we were just grinding as well, but still, you're doing it all in one sitting, and it seems like a good idea. You want to get it out of the way, but yeah, it was a long, long afternoon and went late into the night too. So
yeah, and that's when you get tired. You start making mistakes. You cut corners.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the sort of the single greatest thing that you can remember about making a batch of sausage is to cut your meat and fat into pieces that are going to fit into your grinder. Get all the salt and curing salt, if you're using that, and sugar, if you're using that, that you need for your recipe. Not the other spices, just these. And mix it with the meat and fat by hand and put it in a tub in the fridge overnight before you start work the next day. That simple process is going to develop myosin in the meat and to some extent in the fat, but mostly in the meat, that will create a much stronger bind. Because one of the biggest problems new sausage makers have is they make a sausage link and it looks great and they eat it and it's like crumbly cat food inside.
right.
And, and everyone's sad. So everything is about bind. And the bind is what is the difference between a sausage and then a hamburger, really, if you cut it down to brass tacks. And so that one process, you can even, if you're grinding several times, like I often do, I'll always grind more than once. Always. Sometimes 3 and 4 times. Like a German Weisswurst. So I'll grind it through a 12 millimeter plate, then I'll grind it through a 6 millimeter plate, then I'll grind it through a 4.5 millimeter plate, then I'll grind it through a 3 millimeter plate. It's an absolute pain in the ass. It takes me 3 days, but it's a beautiful sausage.
Yeah, Mike and I were talking about the importance of salt. And, you eat some sausage and you feel like you have to drink a gallon of water after you finish. So we always kind of lean towards reducing the amount of salt as much as we can. But at the same time, like if you have to have a certain amount in there to make that myosin, to make the binding process happen, like where's the, do you have a tip for where that line
2%.
is for folks? 2%?
2% of the meat by weight.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty straightforward.
That works.
So if you've got a kilo meat and fat, you know what? 2% of that.
Okay.
And so I go 2.5, but because I like salt. 3% is what you do for salami, but it's too salty for a fresh sausage.
Right.
But 2% is a very nice. Now, mind you, that's 2% including the curing salt. So it might be 1.9% regular salt and 1/10% curing salt.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I don't think we've done any sausage that involved curing. Or
No.
curing
So you
salt.
haven't smoked any yet?
No.
But we
Okay.
should.
Well, I'd like to have a curing room.
Well, you got Craigslist in British Columbia?
Yeah.
Get a cheap old fridge from Craigslist, and then go online and get a beer fridge setup. Actually, there's a thing called I can't remember what it is now, but I can get it to you for the show notes for this. It's a combination device that I have. I'll just have to go and run and look at it. And you plug it into the wall, and both your refrigerator and a humidifier both plug into it. And so there's sensors, and the humidifier go into the fridge, and you can control both temperature and humidity pretty well. I mean, it'll oscillate a little bit, but that will change your life, because I can, we're getting into curing stuff here, and curing is a little bit dicier than fresh sausages, but when you cure a salami at 80% humidity and then slowly ratchet it down to, say, 65% humidity, it is a million times better than a salami that has been cured at 65 or 75% humidity from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is it allows you to hang it longer. And the longer you can hang it, the more funk you get.
Right.
And the more funk you get, the more interesting the salami becomes. And it's not unlike hanging upland game birds. But all of us, or probably many of us who are listening to this, have had a truly amazing piece of ham or a truly amazing piece of salami that was like, well, what is that?
Yeah.
It's because they did that.
Right.
It's cool. Because the ham's 2 or 3 years old. And it's because the salami was hung for 6 months and not 6 weeks.
Yeah, we have a local restaurant in town where he makes all his own charcuterie and stuff like that. And he's super dedicated. I'm pretty sure he sleeps in the restaurant every night. But he's got his room in the back, and he sells all his stuff. And you go in there, and there's something about the look of that charcuterie. Like, it's very, I don't know, like you can tell he's curing it for sure. And the fat, when you put it in your mouth, it just kind of melts.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. He must be doing these things.
It's also the quality of the pigs he's getting too.
Right.
So weird example. So the best ham in the world is jamón ibérico from Spain, and the best jamón ibérico is the balota hams, and those are, balota means acorn, and so these pigs are finished on acorns in the Dehesa in Spain, and they're amazing. I mean, you get that fat melting in your mouth feel every time you bite it. Well, that same pig is terrible for salami because that fat is so soft.
Right.
It's so soft that at curing temperatures, it can actually melt and run. This is why you can't make salami with uncooked duck fat. It won't work.
Right.
The duck fat it will melt and it will drip out of your sausage, and you will be extraordinarily sad. I get asked this question all the time. Like, I want to make a goose salami. Can I use the fat that I pulled out from a Canada goose or whatever? And like, no, you can't actually. The only time you can get away with that is if you emulsify the sausage, like with mortadella or a hot dog.
Interesting. Yeah, Kelly, was there any other questions you had regarding sauce? I know it's obviously important to keep things really cool, and that's a good tip. And
yep, I find it's
you
the
can
details.
overmix too.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you've ground and you're ready to go, 90 seconds is about as much as you really want to go. Maybe 2 minutes on the outside.
Okay.
But I have seen a lot of sausage binds break, at 2.5 minutes.
Right.
And 3 minutes. Now, this is my experience, and it's right now it's reasonably extensive, but it's not exclusive. So there'll be some people listening to this. Well, I always mix my sausages for 3.5 minutes. Well, maybe whatever it is that you're doing is saving it, but for the most part, over mixing is just like, if you overmix whipped cream, you get butter.
Right.
So you get a similar effect.
Mm-hmm. With this last batch of sausage that we did, we were following your book for a lot of it, as much as we could anyway. We had a humongous batch there. But by the time you're done, like, this is 4 or 6 hours later with a batch this size. And the whole time I was looking forward to hanging those sausages, at least for, I can't remember what the time was, like the minimum, 2 or 3 hours, just letting things drip out a little bit. We ended up just bypassing that, throwing everything into the freezer, wrapped up in batches. What does the hanging process do, and what's the advantages of that?
Well, a couple things. First thing is there is even though you're not using curing salt or bacterial starter like you would in salami, you get what's called a bloom, and the sausages dry out a bit, and because they're usually very wet, and part of the reason they have to be very wet is so they slide into the casings. And you want some of that moisture to go away. You also want, what happens is the hanging process connects the casing with the meat better. So you'll notice a color change, you'll notice a moisture change, and you'll notice a big flavor change. And the salt is protecting the meat, so you're not going to get sick. I mean, it depends on how long you hang them. But I mean, I've hung them for a full day 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a little lower. And it's just an amazing thing. I mean, your meat is significantly better because in some ways it cures in a dry environment, even for just a little bit. And then when you put that link on the grill, you get what the Germans call Nacken, which is that pop that you get when you bite into a good sausage link.
Right.
And you won't get that if you don't hang them.
We were talking about that actually. We're wondering why we weren't getting that, exactly what you said, just that good satisfying crack from a good sausage. So maybe that's the missing piece in what we've been doing.
Well, and even when you cut through it, it's not necessarily like the crumbly aspect that I think in part comes from the salt and the binding like we were talking about. But cutting through the skin, it's not like a straight cut through the skin and it just holds on both sides. It kind of like tears the skin a little bit.
The casing, yeah.
Yeah, the casing, I mean.
So when you're making your links, how fastidious are you about removing every little bit of air in the link?
That's the other thing. We didn't go through and like poke it with a needle.
Right. You absolutely 100% have to do that. 100%. Extremely bad things can happen. Even dangerous things can happen if you don't do that. Because let's say you've got a big air pocket and you put the sausage link on the grill, and what happens is sometimes the fat can collect in that air pocket and boil and explode in your eye.
Right.
Good point.
And I'm only telling you this because it's happened to me. And yeah, I mean, I spend a solid 15, 20 minutes, even on a 10-pound batch, going over every single link with a needle. And what you do is you take your hands on either side of the link. Then part of this is using the force. You're going to break links at some point, but you'll get it. Is you know exactly how much pressure to exert on either side of the outside of the link towards the center. And it's gentle. And what that does is that will bring the air pockets to the top of the link, and then you can use the needle to break that. You want to be very gentle when you're first starting to do it because there's nowhere for the air to go yet because you haven't pierced it at all.
Right.
And then you're going to immediately see where it shows up, and then you're going to pierce that, and you'll notice that the skin will shrink back on the meat. We'll keep doing that a couple, 2-3 times, and you'll have no air pockets at all, and then you're good to go. And then when you hang it, it becomes a cohesive thing rather than ground meat in a casing.
So I guess the moral of the story with sausage is small batches, take your time, and make sure you get the details right.
Well, small batches is only true while you're learning.
Right.
I'm joking when I say the first 1,000 are hard, but maybe the first 1,000 links is what it is. I mean, you need to go through a whole bunch of repetition. I mean, it's just, I don't know, what do they say? 10,000 hours, you become an expert or whatever it is. But it's a process. And here's the one thing that I find humbling when I try a new thing, like brewing or making sausage or whatever. I've been making sausage now for close to 20 years. And is it rocket science? No, it's not. But on the other hand, to walk into a kitchen and make, 2, 3, 4 batches of sausages and think that you can make it as good as I can is disrespecting someone like me, or someone even worse than me, like somebody who actually does this for a living.
Right.
A good example is I had an argument once with someone who said that, a good home cook is every bit as good as a good restaurant cook. And I said, well, do you like leg of lamb? And they said, yeah, I love leg of lamb. How many times a year do you think you cook leg of lamb? I probably cook it 10 times a year. I'm like, okay. I worked at a restaurant where leg of lamb was on the menu. I cooked 8 a night for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that you have to cook 1,000 links of sausage to get good at it. I'm saying that it's a process, and enjoy it as you go through it because it's a lot of fun. You get to eat your results. And if you ruin a batch, just break the casings and make it the base of spaghetti sauce. Right. I mean, how bad is that? Or chili or taco meat. Sure. The only thing that is really unfortunate is if you make like a hot dog or an emulsified sausage and that emulsion breaks. That's disgusting. That's just gnarly. I mean, hopefully got a dog. because
you can't make some type of weird hamburger out of it.
It's ugly. Because there's cream involved and emulsified fat, and it's just yeah. But like a bratwurst or an Italian, if it's not so good, break the casing and then use it as a base for spaghetti sauce or chili or taco meat.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's cool. It's look, I've been happy with the sausages that we've made, and it's a lot of fun to do. But it's all those little details that you learn over 20 years of making them, right? So I think Kelly and I are just going to keep honing this craft, and eventually we'll be, they're just going to keep getting better and better. If they're getting worse, then something's not right. But I think we're going in the right direction, and just those few tips you gave us are going to make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just it's a fun process. I mean, there's no reason not to because the bottom line is like when you ultimately get it under your belt, which will happen sooner or later.
Yeah,
you'll make a series of links that that reflect your personality.
Right.
That even though it's a bratwurst, let's say it's your bratwurst because your mix is slightly different from mine.
Yeah.
Because your tastes are different, and even though you may work within the strictures of let's say, okay, a bratwurst has to have X, Y, and Z, but there's all sorts of other things that can make it very idiosyncratic, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Well, Hank, we had like 2 pages of notes here. We were super excited about this interview. We don't want to eat up too much more of your time here, but I know you read a lot. It sounds like you've got a bit of a library on your hands there. I'm
surrounded by books as I sit here.
Perfect. Have you got a couple that you would recommend? Just, it could be foraging, it could be cooking, it could be anything.
Well, foraging. So the problem with foraging is it's all very, very regional.
Yeah, true enough.
So, but there are 2 books out there that, ironically, they're only so for you and I. But if you are listening to this and you live in the Great Plains all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, from about Manitoba, Ontario, down to northern Florida, which is a big swath of this continent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The 2 books by a guy named Sam Thayer, Nature's Garden and Forager's Harvest, Thayer. They're available on both Amazon.Canada and definitely in the United States. They are by far the gold standard of foraging books.
Cool.
If you look up a plant in Sam's book and you don't feel comfortable eating it, well, that's on you. Mm-hmm. A great number of other books, because they are, well, let's just call it like it is, because Sam did his own books, and that's why they're great. Mm-hmm. There's so many other foraging books are created by editors who don't do this.
Oh, okay.
They don't know the questions to answer.
Right.
So that's why those 2 books are especially good. Cooking-wise, well, it depends on what you're cooking. I mean, if it's game, it's quite clearly my books. But let's go back to sausage for a second. So if you're doing charcuterie, I would say there's 2 books that jump out at me. One is a book called Cooking by Hand, and it's by a guy named Paul Bertoli.
Okay.
And he's Italian, and it has a very, very good, solid grounding on Italian charcuterie. There's another one called Charcuteria by a guy named Jeffrey Weiss, and that, as you might imagine, is a huge book, and it's a great book about Spanish charcuterie. The classic would be the book by Ruman and Poulsen called Charcuterie. Get the 2nd edition. Don't get the 1st edition because they adjusted. The 1st edition is a little heavy on salt, and they adjusted that in the 2nd one. There's actually another kind of a quirky book, and I'm sure you can get it because you're part of the Commonwealth. I had to get it in England.
Okay.
It's a book called Manual of a Traditional Bacon Curer.
Huh.
I can't remember who's the author of it, but it is the only really good British charcuterie book that I've ever found. And, some people listening to this will be like, oh, well, that's because British charcuterie sucks. Well, it actually doesn't. You just have to know where to find it. And this guy's book is really pretty special.
Cool.
Other books, I don't know. Give me a topic.
Well, let's bring it back to your books. What have you got available right now?
So I have 3 books out. The first one is called Hunt, Gather, Cook, and that came out in 2011. And it is a primer, sort of it's a little bit of everything. It is a reflection of how I try to live my life, and it is a kind of a call to action for people to do more wild things, in the sense that we as a species are as divorced from the wild world and as divorced from nature and how to feed ourselves as we ever have been. Mm-hmm. And I'm not asking people to, be me,
right?
Brewing beer and making sausages and hunting and fishing and doing this full time. That's crazy talk. If you can, go for it. God bless you. Mm-hmm. What I'm asking is for people who are listening to this, who have normal lives and are, being busy and having kids and all that kind of stuff, is to find something or a few things, hopefully, that involve wild food, that become part of your family's DNA.
Right.
Maybe it's a deer hunt. Maybe it's an elk hunt. Maybe it's salmon fishing. Maybe it is grouse hunting. Maybe it is picking blackberries. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is morel mushroom hunting in the spring. But keep this kind of family tradition alive, or create a new one. Because if you have ownership in the natural world, and the best way to get ownership in the natural world is to eat it. Mm-hmm. I can look at Yellowstone all I want, and I love Yellowstone, but I can't pick mushrooms in Yellowstone. So I'm actually more interested in the national forest that's right next to it.
Right.
So the spaces in which you do your craft become spaces that you defend. And that's what this book really hopes to instill. And of course, it's got all sorts of practical stuff. It's got a little bit of foraging advice and fishing and hunting advice and recipes and all that kind of jazz. But the reason I wrote it is what I was just talking about.
That's very cool.
The next 2 books, Duck, Duck, Goose and Buck, Buck, Moose, as the names, and as you might be able to guess, are deep dives into single topics. Mm-hmm. So I spent an enormous amount of time with my girlfriend Holly Heiser duck hunting in the winter. So that second book was more or less everything you ever want to know about cooking ducks and geese, whether they're store-bought or wild. And it's got over 100 recipes and all kinds of techniques and species variations and discussions of kind of the terroir of ducks. An example would be a brant shot in British Columbia is an amazing thing to eat. A brant shot where I grew up in New Jersey is trash, and it's all diet. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then my latest book is Buck, Buck, Moose, and that is everything you ever wanted to know about things with antlers. So it's elk and moose and deer and antelope and caribou and that kind of thing. And it's that one. I started this with the duck book, but the venison book was really eye-opening in that if you look at the recipes, and there's 120, if you look at the recipes in Buck, Buck, Moose, they're from all over the world. And they're not recipes that I just shoehorn venison into. Mm-hmm. They're recipes that in their country of origin at least were done with wild meats, if not still are. So the realization as I was researching that book, and this book, the current book on upland game and small game, everybody has a tradition with it. Mm-hmm. So I was, trying to get a loan to do this last book out, and I was talking to my banker. It was a guy named Omar, and I was talking to him about it, and he sort of sits back in his chair, and he talks about how he misses hunting gazelles in the eastern deserts of Lebanon. My head almost exploded. Like, really? What? They still hunt deer in Lebanon? Like, who knew, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, I have a friend who's a line cook, and he's from Hokkaido, Japan, the northernmost island, and they hunt the same axis deer, the same Sitka blacktails that you guys have.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The exact same deer that you guys have in British Columbia and Alaska are the deer in Hokkaido. So there's all of these traditions all over the world that involve all of these game animals, and that's the big core in all three of these books. Is that Lord knows this is a divisive period in our history. There's a lot of just horseshit being thrown around, and this is one small thing that all of us do. It's one small thing that people all over the world do. They go out and they seek wild food, and they enjoy it with their friends, their family, and their relatives at the table. And these books are a celebration of that.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think we were hooked at the intro of that Buck Moose book because you kind of mentioned that humans have been chasing deer since the beginning of time almost.
Since before we were humans.
Exactly. And that's there's a point in there, I think Joe Rogan's mentioned this, that act of hunting may have been the reason that we turned into the humans that we are in terms of cognitive ability, just the planning and execution of those hunts. So, but the last paragraph you have in that intro is kind of ironic because it says that you don't know if there's any other meat out there that's as brutally treated in the kitchen as a deer. So I don't know. It's a great book for sure, and there's a lot of good tips on how we can improve things and we can't treat a deer like a piece of beef. So in most cases, so
yeah,
it's a great resource.
The detail of the book is amazing. So
yeah,
for anybody who's trying to navigate these for the first time, I think that's the best place to do it because we've looked at other books and other recipes, and they're very basic, which is nice. If you're trying to do this for the first time, but if you want to take it to the next level, I think your books are the resource you want to be looking at. So nice work on those for sure.
Appreciate it.
And your next book is going to be out when?
The hope is to have it out in a year, actually.
Perfect.
In April 2018.
Good. Well,
awesome.
Best of luck with that, and we'd be glad to be a recipe tester.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Good, and for folks that want to find you, your website and your social media and all that stuff is?
I am you just look for me. I'm Hank Shaw, and that'll pretty much
link you
that'll
up.
pretty much come up everywhere. The website is Hunter Angler Gardener Cook.
Good.
So you can find me either at hunteranglergardenercook.com, at huntgathercook.com, or at honest-food.net.
Beautiful.
Everywhere else, I'm either Hunt Gather Cook or my name. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Obviously, I'm on the web.
You're everywhere.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we just want to thank you for coming on, and we appreciate the amount of effort you put into your craft.
Yeah.
We're fans.
For sure.
Well, cool. Good luck up there. And I'm this coming tour, my goal is to actually make it up to Canada.
Okay, good. Well, let us know. We'd love to come out and see you.
Definitely.
Perfect. All right, Hank. Thank you very
Thanks.
much for your time. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Take care.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. Super knowledgeable guy. Eh?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite interviews, man. That was cool, and you can tell he's at a different level, I think, as far as this whole wild chef thing goes, and I think it's because he brings in all those other elements that some other chefs might not be. But I think his attention to detail and his obsession with doing these things, to a level that he's doing it is pretty inspiring. So,
what's that show on Netflix? Is it Chef's Table?
Yeah,
or something like that. Where
great.
They go in and they do a special on like this guy from France, and he adopted his father's Michelin restaurant.
Yeah.
I feel like they should do one on Hank.
They should.
Like he's got his own thing going on where, he's an expert, but he's an expert in many different things. And
for sure.
And he pulls all those things into one meal. So if he wants to, like he said.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just a lot of knowledge there for sure. And like he said, it's probably not realistic for most people to get to where he is unless that's your lifestyle and your living. But
But hey, if
you can get to a certain spot, right?
do a few of those things very well, right?
Yeah.
So very cool. And as always, I'm pretty grateful for these opportunities that we're getting, Kelly, like who gets to spend an hour with Hank Shaw and ask questions that we have on our mind. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys listening enjoyed that. I'm sure you did.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see some things in a book, going back to sausage making, and it's like, pinprick the air out of the sausage, and you're kind of like, I already did like the first 30 steps. I'm pretty sure I can skip this one. I'm tired. We have all this stuff we got to get. Like, I got to drive home after this.
Yeah.
And then, when you talk to somebody in person and you get a lesson from somebody, you start realizing, like, well, this thing is actually one of the most important things you have to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all the rest is a moot point.
For sure.
So,
game changer.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I think we can end on that note.
Definitely.
Good stuff. Well, happy hunting to those of you that are out there chasing turkeys and black bears.
Yeah. Spring's coming quick.
And,
well, it's already here.
Yeah.
But, good luck out there.
We've got some more good interviews coming your way, so check back. And maybe once we start doing the black bear hunt, maybe Kelly and I will do a one-on-one. It's been a while since the two of us just sat down for a good BS session. So cool. Well, as always, thanks for listening. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.